It's never good to follow a graduate from Stanford. But Ben, you need to know that Oregon State is the Harvard of the West. Okay? Thanks, Rachel. Ben is really right. I really appreciate what you said, Ben. We are under attack in the Oregon educational system. We feel it. The media, politicians, even sometimes our own community. We feel that weight on us. And I gotta say that do we need to improve on some things? Absolutely. Do we need to change some things? We're always looking to get better. But the encouraging thing to me is we've got outstanding teachers in our buildings. We've got teachers that love their job, they're passionate, they're good at what they do, and that's who we get to serve. That's who we get the honor and privilege to work with. And that's a weight. Ben said it. There's a weight on our shoulders as principals. Every day when you park that car and you walk into your building, there's a weight on your shoulders. There's a weight that you are responsible for leading that outstanding group of teachers. There's a weight on your shoulders that says you are responsible for the safety of every one of those staff members and every one of those students. There's a weight on your shoulders that says you have to prepare your students for the future, and you're not even sure what the future looks like. And that weight doesn't go away when the last bell rings. Today, you've come here away from your schools, but you're ready for any phone call at any time because there's a weight on your shoulders. And the truth is, being a principal is often a walk in the dark. And sometimes that dark is really uncertain. But it's in that uncertainty, it's in that time there's some of our greatest opportunities. You know, we need to be able to handle the unknown. Because if we can't, we probably shouldn't be leading. If this principal job was always lit up, if that path was always lit up, it would be crowded. But there is no traffic jam on the road to being a principal. It's hard work. It's a grind sometimes. Rob Saxton, a friend of ours who used to be the superintendent of Oregon, he said this, and Chris probably said it to you. He said, you know what? If this work is hard, then you're probably doing it right. Because if it was easy, anyone would do it. He's right. He was right. It's hard work. It's our job to push the envelope. It's our job to challenge the status quo. Nothing makes us feel better as principals when our school improves. Nothing makes us prouder than when we go into a classroom and we see that teacher just doing great stuff. Nothing makes us feel better than when our students are doing well. But we have to push that envelope. And when we do, we'll get pushed back. If our pushback was just from those who we might call enemies, no big deal. The pushback the hardest is when it comes from our colleagues, from our fellow educators, who really do want what's best for us. That takes courageous leadership. Understand this, that recognizing change isn't leadership. That's just an idea. Acting on what you see, that's leadership. Acting on what you see. You know, it's not our job to have every idea. We're not going to have every idea. It's our job to act on the right idea. And that takes courage. That takes courageous leadership. Whose idea was it to come up with a computer on every desk? The truth is, the answer to that is, we don't really know whose idea it was. But what we do know, who acted on it. IBM, and they became the leaders of their field at that time. That's our job. to act on the right thing to do at the right time. Last year, a number of my friends, we went up skiing at Mount Bachelor here. We're average skiers at best. But that day we decided we're going to go to the backside. We're going to do one of those double black diamond whoop-de-doo, whatever you call them. We're going for it. We were courageous till we got to the top. And then we looked down. That thing was a cliff. And I know what we all were thinking, though no one said it. Is there another way down? I'm not really sure I want to do this anymore. Sometimes we ask that same question as a principal, don't we? Is there another way out of this thing? Do I really want to do this today? And then all of a sudden, one of the guys went. And what do? We instantly followed him. We've been doing that since we were kids. Somebody had the courage to go. He created the momentum, and we just followed him. That's our job. That's our job as principals. To go first, to create that momentum, and that takes courage, courageous leadership. So what's that look like? What's courageous leadership look like? What is it that your staff is looking for you to lead? When you go back to your buildings tomorrow, what are they looking for in you? Well, I'm going to tell you. But first I'm going to tell you what they're not looking for. It's a myth. It's a myth that being a principal is about personality. Because it's not. I've seen great principals who are introverts and just as great who are extroverts. Courageous leadership is not necessarily just for the fearless. Because really, if there was no fear, then there's no need for courage. And courage gets us past our fears. Being a principal really isn't about just how talented and gifted you are. I believe this. Some of the best doggone principals were B students because they weren't smart enough to know it wouldn't work. They just took the risk and got it done. So then what is it? Who and what characteristics are your staff members looking in you to follow? Well, let me start with this, and it later became a book called The Leadership Challenge. And the book came from this question. It's a really good question, so pay attention. Who are you willing to follow? Who are you willing to follow? What characteristics, what virtues are you willing to follow in a leader? That's a good question. So this survey went out for 30 years. That's a good survey. It's done every 5 years. In multiple continents, many different languages, many different careers. 100,000 people were interviewed, and they came up with hundreds of characteristics. However, no matter what the year, no matter what the career, no matter what the language, the top 4 were always the top 4. So these top 4 is what you need in your building as a leader. Now, if we had time, we'd do like a little short ride or precision partnering, but we don't. So I'm just going to tell you. But as you think about them, here they go. Right? Honesty. I mean, it's November, and this is a big topic. Are our leaders honest? Do you look forward? Do you have a vision? Forward thinker? Are you good at what you do? Can you motivate people? That's what your staff is looking for. That's what they want from you. But I want to add another one. I didn't come up with this one, but a guy named Winston Churchill did. And he was the leader of Great Britain during World War II, of course, during some very dark times. And this is what he said. Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality that guarantees all the others. In other words, what Churchill's saying is this. None of those matter if you don't have courage. It takes courage to be honest. And I would say honesty is made up of two things: trust and grace. Both take courage. Trust and grace both take courage. Too much trust, you're too harsh. Too much grace, you're too lazy. And I'd also say this: put grace before truth, or they may not hear you. Honesty takes courage. It takes courage to be a forward thinker, because a visionary looks for change, and change is never easy. Competence takes courage because you got to recognize that you don't have it all figured out. And it takes courage to inspire because you're taking a risk. You want to know how to be a courageous leader in your building tomorrow? Be honest. Be a forward thinker. Be good at what you do. And motivate them. So let me give you a word picture here. Let's make it a little closer to home. What's that look like? This is Toya Graham. You remember her? Maybe not. She was in the Baltimore riots. Actually, she wasn't. Her son was. And she went in after him. And they picked it up on film. And Anderson Cooper interviewed her. They said, "Weren't you embarrassed because you were really harsh with your son? Weren't you embarrassed?" "No, I went to save my son." She was crystal clear on what she wanted to do. She had laser focus, and she was resourceful. And here's Larry Martinek. He was a math teacher in LA. He was so frustrated that his kids couldn't get math, and then they didn't like it. And he knew the importance of math for their future. So he came up with a new way to do math. And he tried it on his own kids, then he tried it in his classroom, and then he created this thing called Mathnasium. And Mathnasium is in North America, South America, Europe, and even parts of the Middle East. He was laser focused on what he wanted to do. He knew what his what was, and he was stubborn to get it. And I throw this guy out here because some of you experienced him today. This is a guy that said, "It's coffee plus." They laughed at it. "Oh no," he said. This is Howard Schultz. And Howard said, "It's coffee with an experience." They don't laugh at Starbucks today. Every one of these people were courageous leaders. And every single one of them knew exactly what they wanted to do. So here's my definition of leadership. Courageous leadership. Being clear, I would say crystal clear, and focused about the right thing to do based on what you know in your head and in your heart. That's courageous leadership. That's what those three did, and that's what you have to do. So let's get it closer to home. Let's get feet on the ground here. Let's make this courageous leadership work in your building. And here's how we do it. First of all, you need to know your what. You need to know your what and your why. Be crystal clear on that. And I'm not talking about a mission statement, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about one or two things that you want to accomplish in your building, and it shouldn't be much more than that. That takes work to get to that point. But you've got to know what. The what and the why is the groundwork for change. It's the groundwork for courageous leadership. If you don't know your what, you can't evaluate. And if you can't evaluate, you can't get any better. You need to know your what and your why. Your what is your win, and your why is your inspiration behind it. And you need to be clear. You see, people follow clarity. Unfortunately, they'll follow clarity even if you're wrong, if it's clear. We have plenty of examples of that. Be clear. Clarity equals influence. And influence equals leadership. And leadership equals change. And that's somebody's phone. And all those things take courage. Know your what and your why. Critical. And then you need to be focused on that. I would say this. Focus is organized to the what. If you don't know your what, you can't be organized to it. So your instruction, your safety, your behavior, your activities, your curriculum, go down the line. All that has to be organized to your one or two things is your what. And you got to be clear on it. And then you got to be stubborn as all get out. And this takes courage. Learn to say no. Opportunity does not equal obligation. Opportunity does not equal obligation. That's a great word right there. Because you get all kinds of opportunities as principals, don't we now? Learn to say no. Marry the message, date the method. You got to know your what. Stay on it. Things can change around it so you can get better at it. But you got to know it. And then your resources. If focus was organized to the what, then resources is your energy to your what. If y'all don't know your what, how in the world are you going to hire a staff? Where are you going to put your money? How are you going to spend your time? All energy goes to your what, and that takes courage as well. And lastly, evaluate everything. Evaluate everything all the time. Push away from what's not important to your what. Experience doesn't make you better. Evaluative experience makes you better. You're always evaluating. So, I say this. Lead with courage by asking two questions. I know you already asked these. I'll just tell you what you think. The first one is, it's a head question. Here's my head question. What seems impossible? But if it was possible, it would change the lives of our kids. What seems impossible? But if it was, it would change the lives of our students. When I went to Madras High School, our graduation rate wasn't very good. And we have so many barriers there, I could spend a lifetime telling you about them. And would it be easy to leave it at that? But what if? What if our kids could graduate at the same rate as those in Lake Oswego or West Lynn or Bend? It would change the lives of our kids, and not only our lives, lives for generations to come. And that's the hard question. Simply this. What breaks your heart? There's a lot of great social movements that have been changed by that question. Martin Luther King, top of the order. He was a good teacher up in Boston. But what broke his heart was going down in the South. And he changed the world. A head question and a heart question. And I know everyone that sits here today as a principal, those are constantly in your head. Constantly in your head. So I'll close with this. Thank you. Thank you for being a principal. I know it's not easy. Thank you for being molders of dreams. You mold the dreams of your staff, and then you mold the dreams of our kids. I would say this. I don't know of a more important job in this country than that of a principal. Because we hold the future in our hands. And that, my friends, takes courage. Courageous leadership.